Hello, and welcome to the Exponential Growth Podcast, powered by Analyst Investors. I'm your host, David Olivencia, co-founder of Analyst Investors, and a passionate advocate for leveraging innovation and technology to drive success. In this podcast, we'll dive into the strategies that top leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs are using to navigate and thrive in this era of accelerating technological change. Whether you're looking to lead more effectively, make smarter investments, or understand how to harness disruptive technologies for exponential growth, this podcast is for you. Each episode will feature conversations with visionary thinkers, industry pioneers, and innovative leaders who are redefining what's possible in today's rapidly evolving world. So if you're ready to start and stay ahead of this curve, let's get started. This is Exponential Growth. All right, everyone. Well, hey, welcome to another edition of the Exponential Growth Podcast. Special day. Colombia is playing Switzerland. So if you're watching this on video, I'm sporting a nice yellow Colombian jersey in honor of my wife and my many Colombian friends, my co-general partner, Della Cepeda, who's from Colombia as well. So we'll see who wins. The game's kicking off here in a little bit. But today we have a return guest, somebody I've known probably 20 years or so, has been chief information officer at several companies, executive at Disney, an executive at Ernst & Young, doing a lot of technology and leadership transformations, and several other roles. He's a partner now at CXO Partners, global perspective. Welcome back to the podcast, Alex Mainetto.
Thank you, David. Great to be here.
All right, excellent. Well, hey, and then for those who want a little bit more on Alex, we chopped it up maybe 2 months or so ago on this podcast, talking about Elon Musk and a lot of trying to tie together all his system of investments and assets and how they're all working together. And obviously, this was before the SpaceX IPO, and this is actually it was kind of right before data center-ish. I mean, I think we might have touched on it. I guess we can listen back to the podcast, but the data centers are, now that's a huge, big thing and all that kind of stuff. So for those who are listening, you really want to dig into kind of how Alex and I, and Alex got a very sharp mind and was really predicting the future with Elon and what he's doing. And we'll have to probably chop it up again because things are changing so fast on that theme. But today we're going to talk about something a little bit. You've really been thinking about AI, how it becomes infrastructure, how we govern it, how it controls us, how we control it, governance around it, the risks, and you've kind of taken all these different things and kind of modeled out how this stuff how AI is gonna more and more control a bit of our infrastructure. I mean, we see a little bit of it now, but I don't think people totally appreciate what's coming. So, Alex, just walk our listeners through the journey of what you saw, and then you said, you know what, I'm seeing this, I got to write this paper. Just kind of give us the context, and then we'll jump into more details on the paper.
Sure, happy to do that. So, welcome everybody, and David, again, thank you for having me here. I promise Yesenia that I will never pick a game when Colombia is playing again. So we'll never pick a time where to do a podcast. So bad timing on my part. But again, thank you for having me here. I wrote this white paper called The Last Override and Why Human Authority Has an Expiration Date and How Do We Extend It. And the paper really centers around the fact that, the core idea is fairly simple, but it's going to make some people uncomfortable. I think that the whole topic around AI and what could happen if we don't govern it correctly makes people in general uncomfortable because there are some consequences to it, right? But what I'm saying,
wait. So uncomfortable. Wait. Okay, let's go there. How are they going to be uncomfortable?
So one is because it's an unknown, right? So nobody can sort of right now tell you exactly what's going to happen. There's probably three camps. The ones that are super optimistic about it and don't really care about what happens too much. On the other side, you have people that are super conservative and they want to regulate everything. And then you have folks in the middle. And I think I consider myself someone who's always been in the middle, trying to sort of you know, I'm a promoter of AI, trying to make sure that we utilize AI effectively, but also being aware of what could really go wrong when things go wrong. And so therefore, I say the biggest AI risk that we have right now isn't that a machine is going to go rogue, but that AI is going to become infrastructure. Think about electricity, think about GPS for a second. What would happen if those things wouldn't exist anymore, right? Um, right now, AI is running power grids, is running financial transactions, is running, decisions at hospitals, courtrooms, etc. You name it, is running the military, weaponry. Um, and we're reaching a point where turning this thing off, if you think you could turn it off, because by the way, that there is no such a thing as a kill switch for this thing.
Or maybe
would
there's a kill switch in the US, but maybe China keeps moving it, right? And it's so you also have a kind of a
Yeah.
global dynamic here. Like, all right, but if China keeps improving theirs, and it might go, who knows, right? But you also have this global thing there too, right?
Yeah, there is no one kill switch even in the US either. And so you have this thing that is so spread out across dozens and dozens of institutions and, from data centers to cloud infrastructure to the LLM providers, that there is no one. And so what we do is just like today, the power grid is so distributed right across the board. But it's essentially that same analogy, right? So the damage that it would cause for turning it off, it is more damage. It's sort of leaving it on than turning it off, and that's a little bit of what this paper is. It's about, right? The second component of what the paper also brings to bear is the fact that that moment of when on how this is going to arrive and how we're going to get there, it's not going to be with a warning. It's going to come very comfortably because it's going to come one optimization at a time. The way that actually technology develops, right? One convenience at a time until when pulling the plug becomes really, unthinkable, right? So, and not because anyone is going to basically say that, AI took control of it, but because we gave AI so much control over that stuff, and we sort of forgotten how to take that stuff back. And I call that concept the quiet surrender. And it may be probably, from as far as I'm concerned, the biggest governance risk that we face today.
I thought you might call it like the boiling the frog. That the quiet surrender. Yeah, it kind of will come around us. Yeah, and there was, you mentioned the GPS, think about that, right? I mean, what is how we use that. And you talked about the groups of people, right? You kind of called it the optimists, the in the middle, the pessimists. There was another kind of group that I think is going to become more prevalent. I don't want to, I guess it might be like, call it the anti/anarchists around this, right? These are the people that see this as a big human threat. And these are the ones that I think didn't they go to the CEO of OpenAI's home, and they're gonna stand in front of the offices of some of these major AI players. So I kind of see that as I'm like I'm not like for or against any, and I can, like, what is it, empathize. Like, I can see kind of where their heads are at. I tend to be more on the optimistic side and positive side, but I realize that there are those kind of four. Well, I think you had three, but I'm maybe at, potentially for your next version, I don't know, I think four. But I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
So I think that there's always going to be radicalism around technology on both ends, right? On the I love this thing and nobody's going to convince me otherwise, and I'm gonna put my life on the in the middle because I believe so much of about this, and this happened with social media, um, and also folks that are completely on the opposite side. So there's probably even five
Yeah, yeah,
camps.
fair, fair, fair,
Um,
fair, fair. Yeah, yeah,
and and those against AI, I did see that. And the reason why I picked to be in the middle is because of it's probably goes along with why I ended up writing this paper. So the first thing is that I'm what I would describe as I'm a person that is inside the system building some of these products through CXO Partners, through my role at Cyan One as the CEO of that AI consulting company. I advise boards on these things and executives all the time, and so I'm inside watching sort of what happens. The second reason on why I ended up writing this is and it sort of crystallized this thing is when the Pentagon basically blacklisted Anthropic,
love that.
the first time, and it was because it sort of Anthropic refused to remove safety guardrails from this thing, and and just so listen to this, right? So a tool so critical is being removed because it's refusing to remove guardrails, right? Not to put more, but to sort of remove them. And so if you think about that for a second, um, a government is using sort of that leverage to demand fewer safeguards, not more. And this is not a hypothetical scenario, right? So that's already happened. The opposite just happened a few weeks ago, right? But there is a whole new conversation when Fable 5 was pulled back from Anthropic because of some issues that we can get into more detail later. But now you have these two extremes, right? And then the last thing is, as I was doing research, I just couldn't find any papers that really brought it all together. I found a lot of things that talked about infrastructure dependency, like energy, right? I
Yeah.
found, a lot of things that talked about, what would happen if, there was a financial systemic crash. Um, I talked a lot about, geopolitical things and implications in AI, but there was no paper that sort of brought it all together. And that's what drove me to eventually, kind of, focus on this thing.
So why should the people who are listening to this, why should they care? Like, well, I think those who are listening know AI is important. They kind of see a
Yeah.
future where there's more AI, not less AI. Um, but but why should they care?
Yeah, so I think that they should care for a few reasons. Hold on one second here. Let me. So they should care for a few reasons. So the first one is that a lot of people think of AI as a product and not as infrastructure. And the more that it becomes embedded in the things that you do, and the more that it becomes embedded on how you, develop software or make your business rely on these systems, the more that you need to understand what are the things that could go wrong. So you put the proper governance, processes and rules and things into place, not only for your company, but also for your industry. And oh, by the way, cooperate with others because this is not going to be, one thing that is going to go bad for one company or that is going to go right for one company. This affects industries. This affects the entire world. It's not just the US alone. It's not the US versus China. This is a global thing. So that's one reason why I think, people should care. I think that if you're a policymaker, right? If you're a policymaker, you need to be paying attention to this. And actually, in section 27 of the paper, you'll see I specify clearly here's the 18-month plan on what you need to be thinking about because there's a ton of regulation that people have been talking about but nobody has done anything yet about this thing. The EU Act, which is the sort of the best regulation that exists today, right? Obviously, it doesn't apply to us, but that took so many years. But by the time that sort of it got approved, because it's not going to go into effect until 2030, um, and this is like dog years, right? So by the time it goes into effect, is regulating things that already happened so many years ago.
Totally.
So from a policymaker perspective, they need to be paying attention. If you're a board member or if you're a corporate executive, you need to put AI risk on your board agenda. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, there is a plan, but this is not about a compliance checkbox, right? This is sort of it needs a standing committee that has dedicated focus. It cannot be hidden in the audit committee. And you need to be asking your team, what would happen if our AI systems were to go down tomorrow? Do you have an answer? Most boards don't have an answer for that. And they need to be paying attention because there is a dependency, a clear dependency on your business being successful. There is two frameworks that I've put together for boards and for companies. One is called the CCI framework and allows you to sort of measure. It's called the CCI framework because it allows you to measure how dependent have we become on this system and what are the things that we need to do. So is it time to sort of turn off the switch or remediate it? Or is it safe enough that we can continue operating that system? And it's one of the things that you'll read in the paper. The other thing is called the computing governance stack framework. And what that does is that because this thing is not individual, this thing is global, right? It allows you to kind of think about levels of governance of things that you need to put in place, and also think about doing this broadly, right, across companies. So, for example, for a global corporation that has a bunch of territories that may have, right, in Europe, you may have a different legislation that you need to deal with. In Asia, it may be different. In the US, it may be different. And so you can't think about countries. You need to think about the globe and the world.
Mhm.
And the last thing is that if you're a citizen, you should also care about this thing because why? Because AI decisions are being made every day in your name. Right? When soon is going to come a day when AI, and it may be happening already. AI is going to deny you a loan, or AI is going to sort of give you a medical treatment diagnosis on something, or a government benefit is going to be terminated because an AI made a decision on that, and nobody's going to be able to explain it to you and tell you why that happened. And explainability is this whole big field. There's still, frankly, in its nascency around AI. And you as a citizen, you want to demand transparency. You want to know what the heck, who made that decision and how did it, and so it's your right. And as a citizen, you need to sort of speak up because this is broader than that. So from my perspective, I think if you're a policymaker, if you're in the board, you're an executive, you're a citizen, you all need to be thinking about this thing.
On the policy side, and this is kind of why I do this podcast, right? We're living in exponential times of just rapid change, and like we think we've seen a lot. We think a lot's happening now, and I'm trying to tell people it's going to get faster. It's going to get faster. The challenge with the way we make laws, I think our United States Senate's on vacation for 2 weeks now. They'll come back for another 2 weeks. They'll talk about problems. And then I think they're off campaigning till November, right? I mean, and then you're supposed to be passing laws, right? And so it's going to be really, and then they can't agree. Then even if they can pass a law, right? You got political gridlock, right? Which I get it. I get it, but it's that's going to be a challenge, right? That I don't know how we're going to get through on that side. I agree with you on the board side. I think boards are still figuring out how to get their hands around this stuff, right? I think there is a camp that says, hey, these are risks. They're in the audit, side, and I think there's I call it a growing camp. I think, for at least from my vantage point, of there's, hey, this is a separate, maybe standing committee on the board, and then within the company itself, there's a committee that then reports, that pulls it up. I tend to like the latter model. Although, I can see, there's some maybe overlap between the risks and, the thing with, AI is just, it's a bit, there's a risk side to it, but there's also, like, call it a strategy and a growth. I mean, your board, you're also
Absolutely.
setting the strategy, right? And how you're using it and positioning it, right? So, more, that's an interesting one. So those were
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that back to your policy comment, I think this is a national security problem, not a technology problem.
Fair.
Um,
I,
and,
I would
and,
agree.
and, and we need to think about this, when job displacement becomes so large that it starts destabilizing the economy, or the economy of, I'm not even talking about the US. It could be any other country.
Fair.
Um, it's a different conversation.
Yeah, because people, they have nothing to lose, right? I mean, you can get actors from, bad actors from all over the place. Yeah, it's and that goes to my, kind of, to call it the fourth one, call it the anarchist, putting, which again, I can see, because what do? You're potentially, you don't have a job, you've been replaced by AI, you can't find it, and then government, they they talk about this universal basic income. I think they use another term for it now, universal high income or something, like they're trying to, like, now word it so it sounds cool. Basically, it's like welfare
Your
for the
your
common
your
person,
thousand
right?
dollars a month,
Yeah, whatever,
right?
enough where you can live. Although there's a thought where, like, hey, there's enough, the price of things go down enough where you have enough where you can live, and yet. So, interesting times, and I think people need to just, obviously read your paper and get a perspective on it, but in the background, know that this is like a multifaceted problem. And you talked about, like, the boards or politics, about, what about, like, my grandfather in Puerto Rico? What about family members that you might have in Peru? What about, the single mom on the south side of Chicago? Like, what does this mean to them? Why should they care? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, yeah. So I go back to what I mentioned, a few minutes ago, that as things sort of become so ingrained in terms of AI, and as AI becomes infrastructure. So one is, you just expect it to be there, right? Just like you would expect water or electricity or GPS. Have you tried? And it's a great experiment that I did with a friend of mine. But I took away his phone and I told him, get to a certain place, and you cannot ask me for directions. And that person didn't last more than 30 seconds, and they couldn't get out of, basically, a few blocks off their community, because they just couldn't get around. So there is so much dependency on this thing, and right now is just starting, and it's not palpable yet, but in a few years it will be. Um, and so that's one thing. That one is, you just expect it to be there. Um, Today AI acts as and some people don't like when I say this, but it acts as a therapist. It acts as your doctor. It acts as your confidant. It acts as your, whatever. When something like that is gone, and a lot of people don't talk about these things, people feel the consequences of that, right? Um, Two is that when things like what I mentioned a minute ago, when your mortgages start, being denied, and the loan for your car doesn't get approved, or whatever the case may be, things that happen every day, right? That where a human is making that decision today, but more and more an AI is going to be making that decision. You don't get the job that you wanted, as simple as that job may be. People are going to start feeling those repercussions. So that's probably a couple of things. Three is
Hmm.
the most common thing on why somebody let's say abroad, would feel it or should care is that this AI job displacement is going to continue. And you need to retrain and you need to reskill. And we talked about this the last time that we were in the podcast, in the show, about the sort of complacency in a way of a lot of folks, because they're saying, well, I don't care, this is not going to impact me or affect me. And it's happening every day. And until it doesn't happen to them directly, imagine the day that now AI starts displacing government workers, where before, that would have been unthinkable, right? The day that a robot sort of start displacement, postal workers, because do you really need a postal worker anymore to go deliver that mail? You don't, right? But talk about the societal impact when, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that work for the government, as the government, becomes more efficient, or decides to sort of, focus on operating more like a corporation in some respect, right?
Yeah.
Things are not going to be very conducive to those people that never got retrained, that never really understood the technology. So I think it has vast implications to everybody. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter where you live. And it frankly doesn't matter what age you're in. You could be a teenager or a 70-year-old person, and it's going to impact you in some way or another.
Yeah, it's I had the Colombian jersey on, and I was in Colombia, I don't know, with my wife 4 or 5 months ago, and I looked at and I was walking to like a mall, and I saw a line of like 80 taxis, just waiting in line. And I looked at some of those, and I think some of those people were waiting in line for like 40 minutes, right? And in my mind, I'm going, man, it's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's just when.
Exactly.
Robotax, that's just one example, right? And then, you got robots and all this kind of stuff. So and in Colombia, there must be hundreds of thousands of taxi drivers, like I think just in Medellin alone, I think there's hundreds of thousands, a little bit. But,
And don't count it as 80 people displaced, count it as 80 families being impacted, right?
yeah,
And so
fair.
it's 80 times 5. All of a sudden
Yeah.
you have
And a little
400
bit of a
people.
ripple because it's
Yeah,
the bar at the corner or whatever,
that's
right? At the
right.
grocery store, right? So that was one. And the other thing was government, right? So, government, they work a little bit slow, but what will happen is, people will move with their feet, right? I mean, if you're because you should hopefully, if you're more efficient, you might drive your taxes down, and then people, and if you're not efficient, their taxes up. Then, well, why am I going here? And people just, move with your feet, and you're seeing that right now, across America, right? So yeah, because government is, look, they love to employ people and stuff like that, right? And so, but it will be that might take a little bit of time, just because of what we talked about government and the inertia of government. But there's a lot of that stuff can be a lot of the stuff that government. I remember I was working, I was doing some work for uh, the state of, I won't mention the state, but it was one state in the Midwest, and it was unemployment insurance, or no, 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 it was uh, oh, yeah, I guess you got to get you go when you're unemployed, you get the state gives you some unemployment and stuff like that. Well, they had a call, like, when you call in, like 90% of the calls ask the same question: "What's the status on my check?" Right? And they have teams of, like, and they wait 20 minutes on the thing trying to just answer that simple question, right? It's like painful, right? And then and then like the next set of questions, it's like all the same thing, right? It's like 90% of the questions are like, or 10% of the question, there's like 5 questions that are asked 90% of the time. And all that stuff can be automated. My last point, I'll shut up, is that they found, Verizon, the customer service agents, they put out that the customers liked the AI customer service representatives more than they like the humans. So can you imagine now? Somebody picks the phone. Hey, I'm David. Can I help you? Hey, are you AI? No, I'm human. Oh, man. Pass me to the AI.
Yeah, it's like, for Spanish,
Yeah,
press one. For AI, press three. I will always press three going forward, I tell you.
exactly. Three, three, three. You're here. Oh, three. It becomes the
Yeah.
default option, right?
And maybe four is for a Spanish AI, press
Spanish
four.
AI. Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
Alex, what's so okay? So paper's out. Where do people get the paper?
I will publish a link. There is already, if you just go to Google, you'll find it. It's called The
What would they?
Last Override.
Oh, the last override. Okay, so go to
Yep.
Google,
And
last override, and then
you know,
what's kind of what's next then, right? Okay, you put this paper out there. Are you taking input? Are you? Yeah, I'm sure you're speaking on it. I know you're talking with boards and companies on it. Kind of what's next for this?
yeah. So I've started a dual path, kind of work stream scenario. One is I've talked to a couple of different uh, think tanks, right? That are focused in government. So I've had a couple of very interesting discussions with them. They like what what the paper sort of entails. The difficult part is taking action on it because there is, and I've tried to sort of spell it out very clearly and what needs to be done. So that's kind of one work stream that I'm going through. The second one is I've had a couple of discussions with board members and their boards around the implications of this, and a couple of CEOs. They all have given me very positive, encouraging feedback about this, and they are much more open to what can we do as a corporation in order to sort of take some action. And so I'm getting much more reception from that than from the couple of think tanks that I've had discussions. But what I want to sort of what I've told both groups is this thing doesn't happen by sort of just corporate working on their own and government working on their own. This really needs cooperation and collaboration from all fronts. So I think next step is I've been trying to put together sort of the next level of tools around this so people can actually run through an exercise and make some practical decisions and sort of that's probably version two of this thing, so the tools that people can start using, that's the next thing. And I don't know what else will come from this, but I think I'm just trying to sort of make the message loud and clear that we need to pay attention, and it's across the board, right? It's at the government, it's in the corporation, and it's for citizens as well.
Yeah, no, so very admirable, Alex, the work you're doing in the space for listeners out there. Yeah, take get download the paper. You can follow. They can follow you on LinkedIn. What's your
Yes.
handle there on LinkedIn?
Uh, it's a Mainetto basically. So LinkedIn a Mainetto or Alejandro Mainetto in LinkedIn. So
Yeah, so connect with Alex, and yeah, well, Alex, maybe maybe in a couple months. I think it'll be, if not sooner, right? Maybe to chop it up on kind of the next kind of more data points on this one, and then also a bit of Elon Musk and kind of what's kind of happening there. It's a lot of interesting stuff. Anything else you want to share before we drop?
I hope Colombia wins.
Yeah, me too. We'll see. We'll see. Hope we even win it all too. We'll see. All right, Alex. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you for having me.